Hello, I'm Ed Ackerman, and as CTO of PSI, I've been heavily involved in PSI's STAR technology development since the beginning. This is a demonstration of hardware developed by PSI that lets us receive a signal of interest while simultaneously transmitting another signal occupying the same frequency band. We call such a capability Simultaneous Transmit and Receive, or STAR. In the field of communications, this capability is also called full-duplex communications. PSI has enabled this capability using two developments that I will describe. The first of these we call our STARchip, which we have integrated with other necessary hardware for this demo inside this component we call a STAR box. In this demonstration, we will be transmitting an audio signal from this antenna, which will be an 88.1 megahertz carrier, FM modulated by the song Dream On by Aerosmith playing on that iPod there. Here, let me actually turn that on for a moment. It'll help me describe what we're doing. Good. It's playing now and being transmitted from here. And we're hearing it over here, where we have a second antenna receiving this signal and allowing us to hear it on this radio tuned to 88.1 megahertz. Over at the other table, let's turn this first signal off for the moment. And now, here from this location, we're going to meanwhile transmit another audio signal, which will also be on an 88.1 megahertz carrier with FM modulation on it. This time with the audio information being Feliz Navidad by Jose Feliciano. So, and indeed we're transmitting Feliz Navidad and picking it up back at our first antenna and playing it from another radio also tuned to 88.1 megahertz. This second radio is enclosed in an aluminum case for reasons I'll explain later. So what usually happens when you try to transmit and receive at the same frequency at the same time? You can probably guess, but with my STAR boxes turned off, let's briefly show what happens by turning on both signals. So here's the second signal I'm turning on. And now, when we do that, you'll hear both signals, but you'll hear them from what I'm going to call the wrong radios. This radio's trying to pick up Feliz Navidad that's being transmitted on an 88.1 megahertz carrier from over there. But since there's a stronger 88.1 megahertz signal being transmitted from here with Dream On, that stronger signal reflects off this antenna and saturates the receiver so that it can't sense that weaker signal. Similarly, at our second location where we're trying to receive Dream On at 88.1 megahertz, instead we're getting the reflection off this antenna of the 88.1 megahertz carrier being modulated by Feliz Navidad. In other words, by trying to simultaneously transmit and receive at the same frequency, neither radio successfully receives at all. But now let's show what happens when we turn on both STAR boxes. Let's leave both signals on, but turn down the volume on one radio at a time so we can hear what's going on. Starting with this one, remember that starting with this one, remember that although we're faintly hearing Dream On at this radio, that's what we're transmitting from here. We'd instead like to receive Feliz Navidad, which is being transmitted from over there. And over here, we're hearing Feliz Navidad strongly, where we want to hear Dream On, which is what's being transmitted from over there. Now when we turn on this STAR box, that's exactly what's going to happen. We now hear Dream On here. And turning this one down for a moment, volume is here. Turning this one down. Let's now turn on this STAR box, where I can faintly hear Dream On, but now we're successfully picking up Feliz Navidad. So, again, from this location, we're now transmitting one audio signal that's FM modulating an 88.1 megahertz carrier. And that same 88.1 megahertz, we're hearing proof of success at receiving the signal we want, Feliz Navidad. This is the full-duplex or simultaneous transmit and receive STAR capability enabled by PSI's development of STARchip. While I tell you more, let's turn off this radio. Now, you'll remember at the beginning I had said we have two developments to demonstrate. In the case of trying to receive while transmitting, the STARchip leverages the fact that it has access to the strong interfering signal, which is the transmit signal. The STARchip uses what we call a reference copy of the transmit signal to perform subtraction of that unwanted signal at the receiver. But what if there's some strong interfering signal right in our 88.1 megahertz band, and we don't have access to a copy of it? For that challenging situation, PSI has also developed a self-isolating reference, or STAR algorithm, that generates for itself the reference copy of the interferer we need to subtract. So now I'll demonstrate how the STAR algorithm enables our sensitive receiver to recover our audio signal of interest, Feliz Navidad, you'll remember, on its 88.1 megahertz carrier in the presence of a much stronger interfering signal that's also at 88.1 megahertz and of which we have no reference copy provided to us. In this demo, that interferer will be a strong FM signal composed of a single tone that is hopping around within a 5 kilohertz channel at 88.1 megahertz. A Python script on this laptop controls this Edis radio to generate that frequency hopping interferer, which will be broadcast from this antenna. For this demo, I've implemented our STAR algorithm in MATLAB, which I'll run from this laptop. Since our interferer is not something of interest to our ears, we'll display what comes out of our STAR box with and without the STAR algorithm running on this spectrum analyzer, which will let us see how well the STAR is suppressing the interferer. When it's suppressed, we'll just see the audio signal, this one, that we can't hear but is still there, which we'll be able to hear once I turn the radio back on. And here's why it's in that aluminum case. We found that without that enclosure, that radio picked up the interferer on its own, whether it had been suppressed at the output of our STAR box or not. We want the radio to play only what we're supplying to it from the STAR box via this cable, and the enclosure ensures that. So now let's start the STAR algorithm demo now with our signal of interest present but not the interferer. If I turn on the radio again, I'm sure you'll remember Feliz Navidad, our signal of interest. And again, that signal is visible here on the spectrum analyzer, whose screen we have centered at 88.1 megahertz with a 200 kilohertz span. Now let's see what happens when our strong frequency hopping interferer is turned on. But first, let's also turn on this receiver over here that's still successfully receiving Dream On from the other transmitter. Actually, it has been on, I just had the volume turned down. So you can hear that. Okay, but now turning on the interferer, notice we can't hear either song anymore. And over here, we notice on the spectrum analyzer that used to just display the frequency content of Feliz Navidad up on our 88.1 megahertz carrier. There's now a stronger signal hopping around in a 5 kilohertz channel right within our signal of interest band, and that's our frequency hopping interferer. Let's change the horizontal scale now so we can see that hopping better. And there it is. This is a 50 kilohertz span in which the interferer hopping within a 5 kilohertz bandwidth occupies only one of the 10 segments across. But now let me again turn back to 200 kilohertz because I'm going to see the full, I want to be able to see the full bandwidth of our signal of interest. So just like the full-duplex portion of this demo, the STAR algorithm portion of the demo has a before and an after. Right now we're seeing the before situation. Before I turn on the STAR, the presence of the strong interferer is preventing recovery of our weaker signal of interest. But now turning on the STAR, we'll see that it's now suppressing our frequency hopping interferer. And you might think we could just have gotten rid of it by putting a 5 kilohertz notch filter there. But in that case, we would lose some of our signal of interest, which we're receiving all of, as you can hear. And we would also see a little notch right in the middle of our signal of interest there. And you can see from the spectrum analyzer that's not what we've done. I've returned to our 200 kilohertz span so we can see the full signal of interest there. Now over at the other STAR box where we did not implement the STAR algorithm, our jammer is still keeping us from hearing Dream On, but here at this STAR box, our STAR algorithm has isolated the interferer and subtracted that isolated signal, which we call a reference copy of the interferer, and then it performed a linear subtraction. That's why we call the algorithm the self-isolating reference algorithm, to differentiate this situation from other situations like the simultaneous transmit and receive, in which the interferer is generated on the same platform as our receiver, and a reference copy is therefore available. The self-isolating reference algorithm accomplishes the interference suppression by isolating a reference copy of that interferer over there on its own and subtracting it very effectively, as you can see from the total signal received at the antenna, acted upon by the SIR, and then displayed on the spectrum analyzer. As I mentioned earlier, at the moment, the SIR algorithm has been implemented as a MATLAB script, but ultimately we'll have it running on either an FPGA or possibly an ASIC, and we will be able to repeat this demonstration without the need for a laptop computer to run the SIR algorithm. We hope you'll tune in for that demo as well. Thank you for your attention. Please email me any questions you might have. My email address is eackerman@photonicsinc.com.